Hey everyone, welcome to the Flamecast. My name is Kevin Gilligan, and it's the return of the Flamecast. This is our series where we highlight different artists, creators, just in general, wonderful people who've been at FlameCon, people we'd love to have at FlameCon, and today is no exception. We have a pair of artists who they pair to form part of a great artist studio, Rage Gear Studios. And you know what? Enough of me talking. We'll let them introduce themselves.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
I'm Ray, or as I know, in one half of Rage Gear. And this is
Eric Guerrero.
And we're just two New Yorkers who met along this crazy road and clicked, and the art happened, the geeking happened, and I don't know, it was just like instant magic. When it was like a perfect creative ring. Like we just kind of like light bulbs went off, and it was, I don't know, when you find that person you click well together, you stick together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know your work because I have seen you at FlameCon. I have seen you at other conventions. I've seen some of your work for other organizations. How would you describe your artwork?
Well, gay, or definitely queer. Definitely queer. It's that, when you don't see what you want represented, then you have to become that. You have to bring that to the table. If it's missing, fill in the blank. So we've been fans of sci-fi and comics and conventions for so long, cartoons, you name it. And when you don't see yourself represented, just step it up and you bring it in. And that's kind of like how we took off in that sense. Just trying to fit into the world that we've been enjoying for so long, since our youth. Everybody grows up with some kind of geek.
And that's, going off of that, we definitely are inspired by a lot of things on TV or growing up with the cartoons that we grew up with. Marvel is our big shtick, and we try to like make everything fun and
definitely. So definitely queer and definitely fun.
Yeah,
like if it's not fun, it doesn't. Hold on. If it's not fun, we live in New York. If it's not fun, then it doesn't resonate. Like people can think like, oh, well, that's really cool, but when you make someone laugh, it feels more fulfilling. Like there's something. Like I can't look at
like Xander
and not laugh. They're a little absurd, but it makes you memorable.
Exactly, it stands out. What I love about your work is sort of the different fandoms that your sort of amalgams that you do. I just saw with WandaVision that sort of crosses over with Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Like our culture. These are like the things that influence us, because that movie was like amazing.
You have your, sort of this crossover child of Thundercats and Justice League.
That was a lot of fun. That was breaking a lot of rules. People weren't happy that Chitara and Wonder Woman weren't merged, but it didn't make sense to me.
You can't win them all.
Yeah. But also, it's to like throw a pebble in the water, like not make it what everyone's expecting.
Yeah. So, tell me, who or what inspires you? And I'm assuming some pop culture inspires you, but is there anything else, or any people or person or artist that inspires you?
For me, I grew up with like the Disney movies. Aladdin was a big impact in terms of me getting to draw and all that. And through school, I think I love Art Nouveau, so I kind of have some of that in my style sometimes. But yeah, inspiration, going to art museums, just walking around the city sometimes, just that impacts me. And of course, reading X-Men comics when I was a kid, At the time it was Andy Kubert, Adam Kubert, and Joe Mad that were like the big stars of the time. So again, Joe Mad had this anime manga like influence as well, and I was watching like Sailor Moon and all these other anime shows on TV, and to see that in an X-Men comic, I was just like blown away, you know. But yeah, all those elements kind of mix in with kind of in my work sometimes.
It definitely, everything leaks. Like it's all interconnectionality, right? Like it's all, you absorb things, especially as an artist. It's easy to get caught up in what you see because it's a visual medium, and that's kind of like you grow up trying to produce your interpretation and put that on paper. So it's just, there's what you take in and what you enjoy, and that's all that nerd stuff. The X-Men were a huge part of it all. Like I started in elementary school. Somehow I found the X-Men in elementary school, and it was like it was the who's. That's DC. It was like the Marvel Universe, the listings of like all the characters, and I loved reading all the details. I wanted to know how tall they were and the color of their eyes, and it was just like, it was weird things like that. But then there's also influence from this fashion, because my grandma was a seamstress and my mom was a beautician, so it was just like it was definitely a part of everything I do too. And there's so many fashion designers that go above and beyond to create things that are spectacles and almost go into sci-fi, like Alexander McQueen, and there's just so much talent even now. Like I always look forward to whenever the fashion season is over to see what kind of things were on the runway this year, and the absurdity of some of them and the hyper creativity of others, and just being on the subway when that used to be a thing.
Right. Yeah.
In the long ago. Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, wow, that person got an interesting profile. That person, look at those shoes. Like it comes from, and like it's all those things that at the end of the night keep you up in bed sometimes, because your brain is just like, okay, what can I do with this? Like that was pretty interesting. Can I include that in something? Yeah. So it's
and now fashion and comics is bleeding into that with these galas, the Hellfire Gala and all that, and that's going to be an annual thing. So that's pretty cool to see, you know, how the artists interpret these mutants with their outfits and all that.
It's interesting. Like we talked to Kevin Wada and his sort of the fashion that sort of influences his views, and you know, he's even during pandemic has sort of taken up sort of sewing, and asked him and teased him if we're going to be seeing some a fashion line from Kevin Wada. And it's interesting, sort of the thin line between, you know, the like comic artists and sort of fashion designers, because that's what you're doing. You're designing fashion.
It's part of the job. You have these superheroes need to be designed. These characters, they all need to have some kind of iconic or some kind of look that stands out and grabs people or draws attention. And fashion design is a part of comics. Like your outside underwear.
Yeah.
It's all queer. It's all queer. Well, so I've seen your work at FlameCon, but at other conventions. Do you have like particular favorite convention like memories or moments that stand out to you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. But I mean, FlameCon for one is the place where we feel home. FlameCon is the show where we're just at the most comfortable, and where engaging with people isn't as strained, because you're in the community, because you don't have to explain so much of the work, and you don't get the shock. Like there's been times when, one memory, we went to this convention in Philly. It was at a community center, and like a Latino convention, and these kids run up to the table, maybe, I don't know, 10 and 8 years old.
Yeah. I told Ray, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're coming this way.
They start flipping through the book. They start flipping, then there's all these, like, the cheesecake or the beefcakes, whatever you want to call them. And we're like, oh boy.
Here comes mama.
And then we see, like, who has to be their mother coming down the aisle, and we're like, oh man, these kids won't leave. And mom gets to the table and she's like, who is that bear? Is that a twink? Like she's just like
And then she's
flipping
like, yes. And we're like, wow. We were so taken
she
aback.
bought a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
We met her. We saw her later at like DragCon, and I mean the kids. When we started following each other on social media, she's got them at Pride with the fans. Like it was just you never know.
Right.
Well, yeah.
That's one of the favorite memories. And just because you never know, like the kids and the parents, and it's like that throws you back because that's not a world I grew up in. And I'm really happy that can happen. That a mother is okay exposing their kids to something that I don't know. To me, I don't mind exposing my kids, my family too. I don't find any of it vulgar,
Right.
But
Well,
it all depends on your eyes. It's in the eye of the beholder, right?
I mean, we've been conditioned to, think of things that are for the queer male gaze as lascivious and, taboo. But also, if you go to a convention, if you go to a New York Comic Con or, C2E2 or MegaCon or whatever, there are comics and images and artwork that are drawn for the heterosexual male gaze that show a woman in a very skimpy bikini, clothes that defy the laws of nature and gravity.
Somehow, even though they're in a skirt, there's camel toe.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk about being over sexualized, and then they look at our stuff and they're like, oh my God, don't look at this to their kids. And we're like, there's no nudity,
No, it's no more scandalous than what they're seeing that are geared towards the straight male gaze. So.
And it's camp, even when it is like a pinup, even when it is a guy and it's sexy. It's also there's more to it. There's like you read into the tattoos, or you read into the pose, or you read into it's entertaining, it's funny. It's so those mashups, when people flip through them and they catch the cues, like that's not Thundercats, but
right,
not Superman either.
Right.
It's fun to watch them discover it. And even like the Roger Rabbit series for the 30th anniversary of that movie, that there's one from The Fifth Element, and that really draws a lot of attention too, because it's the diva, the blue diva with the tentacles, and Ruby Rod,
it's the little Roger, yeah. But seeing people's reaction is I guess the biggest compliment. Seeing how well received our art is, and I'd say like my favorite Comic-Con memory, one of them out of many, obviously, was when we first formed Rage Gear Studios. We went to Gamer X out in San Francisco the first year they did that, and it was the first time I went to a queer convention, and just being out of New York City, going to a foreign place, and
that was an adventure.
That was in itself. Our one of the luggages we had were all our prints.
At the time, we only had one luggage.
Yeah, I had this big luggage, and it came with the lock thing that's attached. Never have I locked it, or never has it locked. And
yeah, it was a combination of 3 numbers. That kind of.
Oh yeah.
That was built into the
briefcase or whatever, the
luggage.
And of course, that day we were like trying to open our stuff, and it locked, and we're like, all our prints are in there.
Everything we came here to sell was in that thing.
But again, as a community, then we got help from people, some of the organizers. Like it was.
My goodness, there was one guy, an hour, sitting there putting every possible combination of 3 numbers into this thing, trying to get it to open. And they were just like, "Sorry, guys," and then they called in Mother. And I was like, I didn't know what to expect. But Mother was this like beautiful East Indian woman with a mic. What was it? Not a mic, a walkie-talkie, like this big.
Yeah.
Like, well, here we go. And she just starts pounding away.
Did not open.
And they're like, we rented that. And then she's like, oh, okay, well then.
So ultimately, Ray grabbed one side of the luggage, the other side in it. We pried it open, and then we never closed it because we were scared it was gonna lock again. But stuff like that. And I think working with Ray, no matter what kind of situation gets thrown at us, we still make the most of it. And that's a con experience. And I don't know, it's such a,
you never know who you can be seated next to. You never know what kind of people are going to be around you.
right.
And even that's led to some favorite situations too. Because one year we were sitting next to these guys from North Carolina, guys.
They were like guys, and I was so intimidated by them. Ray just made friends with them, and
They were
like
sitting next to me, like they were judging every cosplay that walked by, like they were on Drag Race. They were working hard on these people, and I just can't believe I'm listening to this stuff, and I couldn't help laughing, and then that kind of just brought more engagement, and we hang out with them now. We went to North Carolina to the convention that they hosted, and it was just, you never know these. That's the great thing about these conventions, is like it's who you meet and the interactions with all the people that come from different places, and sometimes even just the commissions of things, because we do like on the spot commissions too, and that leads to engagement. Like one of the last ones I did was this couple who wanted me to draw on the cover of a blank comic book. They asked for the Dream Queen. And I was like, the Dream Queen from Alpha Flight 1989? Like, yeah. And I was like, wow, like that, and that's someone I can connect with, because like they go back to this stuff that maybe I feel like only I remember.
And they did recognize all your artwork. That I'm like, what is that, Ray? You're like, oh, it's this thing. But they knew it. They called it out.
Yeah.
So,
That's awesome when your art connects with people like that. So
yeah.
And then that's sort of the great thing about conventions,
especially FlameCon, because you connect on another level.
Yeah.
Like you kind of let down the guards. There's always, when we do these shows, we always go in there expecting, because it's the world we live in. Like you expect some kind of reaction that's not going to be pleasant. Like there's going to be some. So we've been fortunate so far.
Yeah,
but
and not only the people that come to FlameCon, but also the creators there too. I spend so much money and support other artists, and you just get all this energy from the room, and it's so great. And I'm so excited for it to come back this year.
I end up staying at the table. I'm so afraid to get up because I will spend every dime. Because
again, you don't see this art at a regular Comic-Con, so it's I kind of go ham.
I want to support all the LGBTQ representation that they're out. There's so many great artists that you guys always bring into these shows, and I want something from everyone, but you can't do it. It's not a.
I mean, usually there's over 200 artists, so yeah, it's
it's overwhelming. I want something from everybody. Like I was like, you're valid. I see you. You're here. You deserve this. You earned it.
Well, to wrap things up, we're always curious, and we want to expand people's knowledge of things that they may not be aware of. What are you getting down and nerdy with right now? What are you consuming in pop culture?
Oof. There's so much on those streaming services right now. Oh my goodness. That's been the easiest thing, especially during the situation. They really stepped up their streaming game. Like there's so many things out there right now. Raised by Wolves is intense and super sci-fi, like sci-fi to the max. And then there's like to the opposite of that, there's Our Flag Means Death. That's Taika Waititi, and it's a gay romance. But it's pirates, and it's ridiculous and it's absurd and it's hysterical, and I love that. And so there's just so much, even Tiger King, like things like that happened, and we all took it in. Like that's pop culture, unfortunately. Like everybody knows those names. Won't name them, but we all know the names. It's in music, like it's everywhere. And one of the fine, Tiger King's kind of rough, but at least they were gay.
I mean, and that was not representation unless you're portraying all of it, including the trash. So
yeah. And that was like being gay was the least controversial aspect of that. Like it was just that meant nothing. It was something. So definitely when it comes to pop culture, the streaming is big, because it's also, I mean, we don't have water cooler conversations anymore much, right? So like that's become what it is. And during pandemic, I think like 2019,
Yeah. No.
Jonathan Hickman walked into the X world and tore it upside down. Like it was the whole Moira McTaggart situation. But like, I mean, that had people.
The Hoxpox.
When we were having meetings every time we read one, it was just like, what is that? What is this
Discussions
happening?
with our friends. We would
Can
call
you
and just-
believe they did
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Like it just
It
went
was-
on,
Right.
and it's still going on now. Like I'm surprised. Even just recently, Immortal X-Men came out, and that through like, what else could they possibly do with Moira? And there you go.
Yep. What? I Ray doesn't really do, but I watch a lot of anime, and I've been watching Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen is one of my favorites. My Hero Academia, but another great show on Netflix was Arcane, League of Legends. That was beautifully animated. It was painted pictures and the character development, the story. I was very into that. Again, that had like an Art Nouveau type of aesthetic, so it was very much my realm. And even like stuff like Big Mouth. Now there's a spin-off called Human Resources. We're big fans of. So
Maya
Is that-
Rudolph,
Connie the Hormone Monster.
Bubble Bath.
Bubble Bath.
See,
we
now
love
that's pop culture.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, and so much is out there, and yeah, I don't know. So much so that I gotta limit that so I can focus more on art. But yeah, I'd say that's for the most part.
Well, I want to thank you both for chatting with me today.
Pleasure.
My pleasure. It's always great to see familiar and welcoming queer faces. So, and hopefully more people are learning about you and your work. If you want to see more of Ray and Eric's work of Rage Gear Studios, you can go to the very easy to find www.ragegearstudios.com. And you can also see samples of their work on social media for Instagram and Twitter. It's at Rage Gear Studios. And funny enough, on Facebook, it's facebook.com/Rage Gear Studios. That branding is hard. You're going hard on that branding. So.
But thanks, Kevin. It's been an honor.
No, it's been great, and look forward to seeing more from you. And we'll see you at
you in person.
AwesomeCon.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we'll be there in June.
Are you going to be at AwesomeCon?
We will. Yes. So,
Awesome.
great. And I will. We will, and I will. So thank you so much. If you love these videos, please check them out. If you're listening to this, we are offering these for our podcast subscribers first, so you can hear them first before they go out onto the videos, so you can hear them. But if you want to see the images, because the images are great, you can't see them in the podcast. It's a visual medium. You can go to our YouTube page, My Loud Neighbors.
The party.
It's a party everywhere. See?
Yeah. You can go to our YouTube page and find our Flamecast videos and see other interviews with other artists and creators, and see all those, and even some of the past panels from FlameCon, and interviews with Wilson Cruz and a bunch of other people. So you can all see that on our YouTube page. So until our next one, we're out.
Bye.
Bye, guys.